Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Grow Your Recruitment Business in 2021 LinkedIn Live show. Today's topic is things to think about when setting up your recruitment business. And my guest today is Matthew Baird of District4 Recruitment. And Matt actually set up his business this year and is 6 months in. So he's joining us to share his startup story. As always, there is a short delay between us going live and you actually being able to see and hear us on LinkedIn and Facebook. So we're just going to have a few minutes for you to start logging on. To help us know if you can hear us and see us properly, if you can give us a message in comments and say hello. If it's your first time joining us, let us know. We have been on a bit of a break for the summer, so this is our first show of the autumn. So really nice to be back. If you have any questions as we go through today on the topic, please do feel free to stick them in comments. We may answer them as we go through, and if not, we will come back and answer them at the end. So please don't be shy. Please do say hello. Now, we are talking about setting up your own recruitment business today. So I do realise that if you're in the office, you may not be able to watch live, or you may not be able to watch it all, or you may not be able to ask those questions that you really want to ask. So if you want to do anything confidentially, by all means, send me a direct message. Or if you want to watch on the replay, please do. We would absolutely love you to watch on the replay, and we'll be more than happy to still answer your questions. So please do say hello. The comments are on a slight delay as well, but please do come on and say hello and ask us any questions as we go through. So let's dive straight in. So Matt is joining me today to share his experiences about what he's learned as a recruitment business owner over the last 6 months. And we're also going to be talking about the things that you need to think about before actually starting up, because there's some really important things to consider. And then me and Matt are going to share our startup stories. And finally, we're going to end by answering your questions. So please do ask us any questions as we go through. So let's dive straight into the important things to think about when starting your recruitment business. So firstly, the biggest thing that we need to think about to begin with is finance. It's money. How much money do you actually need to set up your business? So you need to consider your startup costs and capital, and also how long it's going to be until you can actually pay yourself, because you've got to live in the meantime. Now, all of those things will depend upon the model that you go for. And there's 3 different models that you can really look at. Firstly, there's self-funded. This is the model that I went for. Basically, you fund it yourself through either your own money or savings, or through getting a bank loan. Secondly, you can get an investor. You can actually have someone invest in you and your business and give you money. And thirdly, there is a supported model. Matt himself went through a supported model with District4, and essentially you partner with a brand and they support you to start your business and run your business as well. Now, which model will be right for you will really depend on you personally and your personal financial situation. So 11 years ago, when I set up myself, I went with a self-funded model. There are lots of pros to going with a self-funded model, because firstly, you get 100% control of your business. You're not giving anything away. You are fully the only owner of your business. However, biggest con, you need to self-fund all your startup costs. And if you don't have a lot of savings, that might seem like it's a little bit out of your wheelhouse right now. It might seem that it's a little bit impossible. You also need to learn the business side of running a recruitment business relatively quickly. So you have to do all the research, and you have to get all your systems in place, all your accounts, all your finance in place, etc., before you can actually start up. And this can take quite a lot of time, and it can actually stop you from doing the recruitment at the beginning. That was the biggest lesson for me. I was an absolute recruiter. However, what I wasn't was a great business owner, because I didn't really know anything about business at that point. And I didn't really have anyone to go to ask those questions. So that's the biggest con for me of a self-funded model. And it can also be a little bit lonely. You've set up on your own, probably from a back bedroom, you funded it yourself, a lot is on the line, and you've kind of not got the support, which for me is kind of the biggest con as I went through. The second model that I mentioned was the investor model. So if you're a established recruiter now, you've got a solid business plan, you may very well be able to get an investor. The pros of having an investor clearly are more money. You've got more money to get started. If you want to get an office, hire staff, etc., buy equipment, you can do it straight away. And you might also get support from that investor, dependent upon who that investor is and whether they've got experience in the industry as well. And it allows you to pay all your upfront costs and to invest in training, etc., as well. The biggest con to having an investor is that you don't own your business outright. Someone else owns it too. And you actually needing to report into that investor and be accountable to them. And if that's the main reason that you're looking to leave your employed recruitment role right now, that may just not work for you. I know that you looked at having an investor to begin with, didn't you, Matt? What was your experience and why did you decide not to go with the investment model?
Yeah, hi everybody. I did. I had a chat with 2 or 3 investors, and I found the same thing to be true with most that I spoke with. One was that there was still a significant amount of accountability in terms of they might want 2-3 times their investment back in year 1, year 2. So that kind of person always looking over your shoulder didn't go away, and you would still need to justify, I think, a lot of the ways you were choosing to recruit. And secondly, it seemed to be very much focused on start a business, scale it in 3-4 years to sell it, not something which was, I guess, going to be a successful model for you and for what you wanted with your own flexibility in life. When I was looking at setting up my own, it was to make sure that I could recruit in the way that I wanted, I could service my clients in the way that I wanted, and it wasn't all about money for me, but I did want to make sure I got a really fair share of what I did bill. And I felt that going through an investor model, there were just too many, it just felt very much like working for a different kind of agency again. And it was that typical agency, I guess, method that I wanted to step away from.
That's a really good point, because I know that you, Matt, you set up your business like I did as a lifestyle business. You wanted to do what you do well, but also have the lifestyle benefits of running your own shop as well.
Yeah.
And I think if you're going to look at an investor, you need to consider that an investor, they want a return on their investment. Therefore, they're probably going to be looking for you to scale your business, to grow it, to hire staff, to become saleable. So if you are looking at getting an investor, it may very well be a good model for you if you are looking at building a bigger business and perhaps selling it in the future. If you perhaps are like myself and Matt and you want to start a lifestyle business, a business that earns you a good living, but you're probably going to stay small, then potentially it might not be the best option for you. Now, the third model that I mentioned is a supported model. So like Matt's started his business 6 months ago in a supported model. Matt chose to work with District4, and District4 support recruiters to start their own business. They help them launch, they help them with business plans, they actually pay for all their launch costs as well. So I think it's about a 10.5k launch package with District4. And they also provide ongoing back office support as well. And I know that the biggest advantage for you, Matt, of joining District4 was the fact that you were part of a business community of other recruitment business owners as well. So pros of starting with a supported model, very low startup costs, because a model like District4, they actually pay those startup costs for you. They invest in you, which is probably the biggest difference. They give you a launch package to get you started successfully. And you've also usually got the support of advisors. So I know, Matt, you were given a coach by District4 to get you started right from the beginning, which people in a self-funded model, I know myself, I couldn't afford to do that. And I didn't quite understand at that point when I first started my business about investing in myself and my future. So because you haven't had to pay for that yourself, you've got that right from the beginning. And as I said, you've also got your back office and systems sorted as well. So there's not as much of a learning curve in terms of learning the business side of things as I had in my self-funded model. Obviously, the cons of a supported model are that they're investing in you. Therefore, at some point, you have to give back. And I know that District4 do that by you giving them a portion of your earnings. So I think it's 70%. You keep 70%, don't you? And you give District4 30% up until 200k per year.
Until 200k.
And then it goes up to you keeping 90% and giving District4 10%, doesn't it? So essentially, District4 are providing you with all of the business side of things, and they're paying for your launch, and then you're paying them back when you actually start billing through your invoices, aren't you?
100%. And it's the full package is things that you don't even, I know we're going to come on to some of those parts, but it's the things you don't even realise that you need support and help with when you start, that when someone is there then offering that are invaluable. And you've mentioned the business coach. The first 6 months, and you'll know this yourself, of setting up a business can be really hard. And actually having somebody there who isn't employed to try and make you hit your targets or make you earn more money or anything, but to help you kind of really refocus on why you set up in the first place, what it is you're looking to achieve, but also being able to coach in terms of other areas to look at and what might be working, what might not be working, where your energy is spent. Absolutely invaluable.
Mm-hmm. I know as a coach myself now, as I said, when I first started my business, I just saw coaching as a cost. I didn't realize it was an investment in actually getting me where I wanted to be faster. And I think I've kind of learned that over the years, and now I really see the benefit of a coach. But if you're self-funding your business, it's your money that you're paying with. So it's a little bit harder to see that, absolutely. So obviously the cons of a supported model, you give some of your earnings away. So with Matt, for instance, he's when he invoices his clients, he's getting paid 70%, and District4 is getting paid 30%. However, you've got very low other costs, haven't you? So essentially, your 30% to District4 are your business costs. So if you are looking at a self-funded model versus a supported model, what I would say is look at what you're getting for your money, and look at what you would potentially be not getting if you self-fund it yourself, and how much more of your time will be spent on the business side. Okay, so moving on. The other big topic that people ask me whenever they're starting to talk about starting their own business are covenants. And covenants strike fear in any recruiter looking to leave any business. But when you're starting your own business and suddenly the comeback is on you, it's a much, much bigger deal. So once you've decided how you're going to start to finance your business, something you really need to consider next is your restrictive covenant. Now, 99% of active recruiters should be 100%, but some people aren't great at contracts. They have a restrictive covenant in their contract, which means that when leaving your recruitment agency, you're not allowed to contact your existing clients within a period of time. And for most of us, that's usually 6 months. And it's usually a really big concern for any recruiter that I speak to thinking about starting their own business, because number one, if they take their clients with them, there could be legal comeback. And number two, if they don't take their clients with them, they essentially have to start again. And that's going to be much harder kind of business development and marketing wise. So there's two things that you can do about covenants, and there are pros and cons to both. So we're just going to go through them quickly now. So basically, you can either stick to your covenant or you don't. That is, there's only two ways about it. You either stick to it or you ignore it and you get on. But either way, I would suggest that you take some sort of legal advice. And when starting a new business, you can usually get some free legal advice from most commercial solicitors. So the pros of sticking to your covenant and not approaching existing clients immediately. Obviously, the key one, there's no stress of threat and legal action. So you can concentrate fully on your startup and starting as you mean to go on. The cons, as we said, you need to build your client base from scratch, which can seem like a little bit of an overwhelming task when you're setting up on your own from day one. Now, although the key thing that I would say about this approach is that you can often be more successful in the end if you actually stick to your covenant and build your business with new clients in the first 6 months. And this is what I did. And what happened was I went after completely new clients and new business in the first 6 months because I was worried about the legal action from my previous employer. And then at 6 months, I could start contacting my existing clients. They came to me and actually I ended up with double the business. And I don't think that I would have ended up with that had I had my initial clients from the beginning, because I probably would have been a little bit lazy. It would have been like moving my desk from one place to another. So personally for me, it was the right decision. But I know other recruiters that have gone the other way and felt that that was the right decision for them as well. Now, big pro for if you break your covenant is that you hit the ground running. You take your existing clients with you. You've got that guaranteed income. However, the con and major con for most of us will be that most recruitment businesses, they'll find out, they'll find out that you've broken the covenant. They'll have someone else try and ring your clients. It's not going to be a very difficult thing for them to find out that you've broken it. And nearly every recruitment agency that I know, big or small, will start some sort of legal action. And they have to, because they need to make a point to the people that are still employed by them that it's not okay to do that. Because if not, everyone would do it, whether they're moving on to another agency or they're starting their own business. So they will take some sort of legal action, even if that's just legal letters. But they could go all the way, as I know they have with some recruiters that I've worked with, by taking them to court. Now, will they be able to enforce a covenant? Probably not, to be honest, because by the time it goes to court, you're going to be probably out of that covenant anyway. However, the actual process of getting that legal action taken against you can be really stressful, and it can overshadow your startup. And it may not be the way that you want to start your business. So there are pros and cons to both. It very much is a stick with it or throw it in the bin decision, but it is something that you need to consider carefully before making that decision and starting your own business. So Matt, was a restrictive covenant a big factor for you when setting up your own business?
It was a big question mark. I'd worked, my last employer the agency I worked for, I was only really with for 6 months, which did have a little bit of an effect anyway, but when starting that business, my business prior to that did come after me for restricted covenants. I hadn't broken any. I was still in contact with a friend of mine who worked at a business. I'd made it clear to them I couldn't work with them for 6 months, and they were okay with that, but we had a friendship. However, the business in question felt that actually I was breaking covenants until I got an email from that client saying he'd made it aware, and then suddenly it all went away. And exactly what you said there, fear tactics, but it does. I started a new role, and I was very worried. And when I was starting on my own, I'm an incredibly passionate social housing recruiter. I'm very passionate about the sector itself, and I'd always worked predominantly in the Midlands. So I thought, well, let's just try further afield. We're in a post-pandemic world. People are less concerned about working with companies just on their doorstep. And certainly when you work for some of those larger agencies, you tend to have a patch or an area that is yours and you can't touch anything else. So I went after clients that I knew of, that I knew used agencies, that I knew had strong ethics and strong values, but that had nothing to do with any business that I'd worked for in the previous 6 months. And I was lucky that things were very successful for me. I think it's also a comment you mentioned there. It's very, very empowering when you start on your own and you're going after new business, because when new clients start to believe in you, you start to realize you've made the right decision. I made one of my largest ever fees in my entire recruitment career in my first 6 weeks of starting, first 3 weeks of starting the company by myself. And so everything then was justified. But more than that, they were a business that were recommended by a client that were in my restrictions. So I told my client, I can't work with you. They said, is there anything we can do to help? I said, well, if you know anybody you'd recommend me to, that would be fantastic. Left it there. Lo and behold, a few weeks later, a call comes through. And it's that kind of value and belief in both yourself and your business that makes such a difference. I agree with you. Respect your covenants. Respect the legal ramifications around it. It's 6 months. It is tough, but there are so many clients out there now looking to use agencies. We're in a world where getting candidates is maybe a bit more difficult than it's been. But if you're a specialist in your sector and you're being successful, now is the time to be looking at starting on your own. Particularly, in my opinion, within that kind of supported model that I have with District4, because you're not having that heavy investment at the beginning, but you know your candidates, you know your clients, you know what you're doing in your sector. And when you suddenly get new clients coming to you saying, look, we've heard about what you're doing. I was up at the CIH conference yesterday for a couple of days. The value that got added to that and value that comes through from those clients, which is suddenly believing in you and the way that you believe in yourself, is incredibly empowering.
Fantastic. I think it shows when you actually getting referrals from clients that you're telling you can't work with because of the covenant, that actually you're showing your integrity anyway, and you're much more likely to get that client back afterwards, aren't you?
And you do, and they come to you. They kind of, because they ask you, right, what's the date? When can I work with you? When can I call you again? It's in their diary. They may respond to some of your stuff on LinkedIn. They may keep touch in other ways that aren't business and selling, but are happy to keep in touch. And I think that's the issue with your covenant. You need to let people know I can't work with you. It doesn't mean that you can't have an idea of what's going on with their business.
Fantastic. That's a really, really good tip. And obviously you're at the 6 month point now, aren't you? So have you been able to go back after all of those clients that you couldn't contact during that 6 months?
I have, and it's been brilliant. As I say, a number of those were at the CIH conference, which is fantastic. And the joy that's come from speaking with some of those that I was restricted for 6 months, or even for in my previous role, but suddenly getting back in touch and saying, great to hear from you. What can I do? Yes, it'd work with you. There's a huge empowerment as well, I think, at the moment of working with independent businesses and working with independent agencies and So when I say I'm Baird & Co Recruitment in conjunction with District4, they're interested to know what that journey looked like and why I did it and where it came to, and they're interested in your story because it is your story now. So yeah, a couple of them are working with me. Touch wood, we've got an interview going on tomorrow, so we'll see how we get on. But immediately it was a call through. They knew they needed someone, and one of the clients actually waited until they knew my covenants were up before they recruited. They knew when it was up. They waited to get in touch because they said, look, we don't want to do anything to rock any apple carts, but is it up? Yes. Okay, cool. This is what we need you to do for us.
Fantastic. And I think you made a really good point there, Matt, in the fact that I don't think there's ever been a better time to start a business because the market is so busy. So I don't think people need to worry as much about their covenants and perhaps not being able to contact those existing clients for 6 months because there's so much other business out there. And being an independent recruiter is such a big selling point right now. People want a personal service more than ever before. And being independent is actually now a really, really good thing. You do not need that big brand behind you. Therefore, I don't think covenants are as big a worry as perhaps they were in the past.
And by the time you're looking at setting up your own business anyway, clients have bought into you, not the company you work for. And I think that's the important thing. It's, oh yeah, we used to work with X agency, it's we used to work with this person. And when that person goes, inevitably, a new agency calling will get a sniff, they'll get a chance. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Fantastic. So moving on to our third really important thing to consider when starting your business, it's your business plan. Now, having a business plan is really, really important to your recruitment startup, and it might seem a little bit overwhelming to begin with if you've never done a business plan for a business before, although you may have done one for your desk. And you really need a really solid business plan if you are looking for an investor, massively solid one, or also if you're looking for a bank loan. But it's also really important to have a business plan if you're going to go through a supported model, or if you're going to self-fund as well. I know District4 helped you with your business plan as part of their process, didn't they, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. A quick shout out to James, who I hope is watching actually. The business plan was a massive part of District4 and something that really helped kind of solidify for me why I would join in the first place. A bit like you said that I'd done one for my desk before previously in terms of a growth system. But the problem is when you do something like that and you hand it over, it immediately then goes, well, that's a no, that ain't happening, that's okay. And then you start, say it's a monthly business plan, you start and immediately at the end of month one, something might have changed or the business say, oh, we're not doing that direction anymore. So the entire thing was a waste of time. The joy of the business plan with District4 and the support and help that I received from putting it together was that I could really see where my income was going to come from. Nothing in there was ever unrealistic, and it wasn't like they were trying to push me to go, right, well, we need you to bill 150 grand in year one. If I'd chosen and I'd gone into that business plan and gone, I'm just going to bill 60, but this is how I'll do it because year two I'll do this. The question from District4 would have been, that's great, that'll be your earnings. Is that going to be enough for you? Are you going to be able to live on that? Or do you need to do whatever else? It was very, very personal. And it was ensuring that you thought through every avenue you needed to succeed. So look to where your own income expenditure might come from. It's looking at your mortgages, rent, etc. And it helped you to kind of really define, again, that first 6 months of restricted covenants, where that's going to come from. And then on top of that with the business coach, so every month, I mean, for me, it was more than that, it's probably every couple of weeks, particularly at the beginning, catching up, talking through that business plan, how you were matching to that. Has it changed at all? If it's changed, how do you want to change it? Rather than it being for the necessity of bringing in more money for the MD, if I'm being completely cynical about it.
And that's a really good point, because when we write a business plan in a recruitment agency role, quite often we overestimate, and we overestimate because we're expected to, because our managers have got targets to hit as well, and they have to put the budget in to the MD of the business, and it needs to look at a certain level. But quite often that means that it's unrealistic and it's unworkable and it's not motivating. So let's look 100%.
At what you I had exactly that. Just on that, I had exactly that 2 or 3 times where I said, look, I was doing a temp desk. I was like, at the end of the year, this is going to drop out and that's going to be the issue. And this was in about November. And I was told, well, that's not good enough. January, we need you to bill that. So that is your target for January. I was like, okay, you can't argue. And then in January, when we hit my original target, I was made to feel like I was failing. And it's just that cycle of, well, that's what the business is saying they need because they are either wanting more wealth coming in or whatever it will be. So completely agree.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to make the point that what is considered a business plan in a recruitment agent role isn't necessarily what's considered a business plan for a recruitment business. So let's go through the main things that you need to consider in your business plan. So one of the big things that you need to consider are costs, because you need to know how much your business is going to cost you to run so that you can accurately budget everything else. So things that you will need to consider are things like office rent, if you're looking to work outside of the home. And if not, you will need to consider any expenditure that you need to get yourself set up from home. Capital expenditure like computers, furniture, etc. You will need to have business insurance to set up. You will have accountancy costs and costs to register your business and get set up properly. You'll need to investigate and invest in CRMs and systems. You'll also need to look at job boards and candidate attraction, which can be expensive as well. So it's really good to investigate that first. If you're used to having LinkedIn Recruiter, for instance, you probably have no clue how much that costs as an independent recruiter. I know that's one of the reasons why people really like District4 model, Matt, because they pay for that for you. But I actually had no clue how much recruiter cost as an independent before I actually looked at it. So it's really important that you look at all the costs before you actually put your business plan together, and before you actually start planning out any numbers or taking any action. You'll even need to look at things like internet, phone costs, etc. I know I used to spend a lot of money on BT back when I first set up, and it's the point when you set up, it's the point where you waste a lot of money on stuff that you potentially don't need. So you want to keep your costs as tight as possible. So that's something to consider in your business plan. And the second thing that you will need to consider is doing some market research. You will need to research your niche and what is going on in your niche. You will need to know what the average salaries are. You'll need to know what your pricing is going to be. You'll need to work out your average fee, and you'll need to do some research into your competitors as well. Because unless you know what they're doing, you can't plan what you're going to do to stand out from the crowd and get people to want to work with you instead, especially if you're looking for new business. The other big thing that you need to plan before you actually get started is your marketing and your business development. If you're starting from scratch with no clients whatsoever, you need to have a marketing plan in place, and you need to have a marketing plan in place that really supports where your revenue is going to come from when you start putting those figures down in your budget as well. A really key piece as well, especially at the moment, is your candidate attraction strategy, as we touched on a little while ago. Who do you need to find, and how will you find them? If you're working in an agency at the moment that uses lots of job boards, has lots of advertising budget, you've maybe got LinkedIn Recruiter, the candidate side of things may be something that you really haven't thought too much about. So you need to do your research into where you're going to find the people that you need to find. How much is it going to cost you? And can you afford it? And if you can't afford it, maybe you need to put a little bit more money in the pot before you can actually get started. And really, really importantly, you want to do a billings forecast, as Matt mentioned earlier on, for your first 12 months. And it needs to be really realistic. You can't over forecast when you're running your own business because you'll end up in a right mess. So what you need to do is look at how much you anticipate billing and when. And make sure that you give yourself enough time, especially if you're starting from scratch, to build up your revenue. And you will have several months in that case, so usually if you're not taking any clients with you, where you've got minus figures because of your costs, and you need to take that into account as well. You also need to decide whether you're going to pay yourself a salary or whether you can live without that for a certain amount of months, and what that is. And that goes to what Matt says in terms of what are your actual living costs. You know, it's not just your business costs that are important, it's your living costs as well. Your business costs or your savings or the model that you're looking at working in support that. So when combined with your cost analysis, your revenue forecast will give you a really, really great idea of how much money you need to spend your startup off the ground. And it's unbelievable how many startups I speak to that are already started up, they're already in business, and they haven't got a business plan. It's such an important thing to have, and it will mean that you are much more successful much quicker if you know your numbers, as we all know is super, super important. So Matt, going back to you, let's talk more about your startup journey. So obviously we talked about thinking about your financials, and it tends to be that when I talk to recruiters, they have been setting up for a while, but the money side of things can put them off slightly. So what was your kind of thought process behind that when you set up?
So yeah, I'd got enough for maybe a couple of months' rent sorted, and my bills and stuff were all covered. I mean, I was fortunate in the fact that I'd had a little bit of money put aside. But by the time in my mind, I was like, okay, that amount of money is going to get me through 3 months. If I then need to borrow, then that's how much I need to borrow for 3 months. But when I was putting my business plan together, I'd anticipated if I could just get a few deals through quite early, I might be okay. Well, it would be okay, and then I'd be more than okay, and it'd be fine continually then, really. Unfortunately for me, that was the way it fell. As I say, I was in my first month put through a fee in excess of £15,000. Suddenly, and the funny thing is, when you do that as a sole business owner, the money's very different. If you do that in an agency, you've hit your targets, you've done whatever else, you might get your bonus, 2-3 grand, whatever it'll be. When suddenly £15,000 lands in your account, you kind of double check and go, hang on a minute, what's good? It is a whole different feeling. And yet you've done the same work, you've probably done it better, and you've cared more about it because it's you and your company and your, what you put into it. So yeah, but I guess when I was first starting up, it was a big question. I'd spoken with friends, I'd spoken with family, I'd spoken with colleagues from previous businesses, and I made sure it was the right time for me. But I think there is never a perfect time to be looking at it. I think there's always going to be an asterisk somewhere that's, maybe I need to wait. I know people right now who are maybe looking and thinking about starting up, but they're going, candidate attraction is really hard. I don't know what I'm going to. I thought, well, that's fine. But if you placed one of those jobs by yourself and that money came in, how would you feel? Well, that's different. That's empowering. And it's that kind of thing that's difficult. But for me, it was the right time. My business plan was all set in stone. District 4 was 100% the right way for me because I love the recruitment piece. I still enjoy the recruitment piece thoroughly. And I'm very passionate about social housing. What I'm not good at would be credit control, would be writing in terms of business, would be all of the back office stuff that you don't even think about needing until exactly what you said there. Particularly when you don't have the benefit of a business coach helping you out as well. And I looked to that, and I looked to the fact that I also didn't want to be on my own. I like the social element of recruitment. And actually one of the things my business coach helped me realize is co-working spaces. Heard of these, or maybe looking at it. I actually found one that is a 20-minute walk from my door. And that is for £60 a month. It's 40 hours. And a big shout out to the Moseley Exchange because it's incredible, actually. It's a big open space, lots of people from different businesses working in there. So I tend to do work in the morning. I'll go down and I'll do 8 5-hour days in there. And I'm around people and I'm talking to people. So twice a week I'll go down. They're flexible around what days that is for me. And it's brilliant because I'm around people again, but I'm still my own business. And people you're so much more passionate when it is your own company. And you really value what you're doing because those USPs that you're set are you are your USP. And so that's where you really need to work hard to stand out, but actually people like it. And there's a lot of value to be had in the market for that at the moment.
Absolutely. And the point you made there about candidates actually being really hard to find, if they weren't, there wouldn't be so many opportunities about. So,
100%.
There's never going to be the right time. Absolutely not.
At times clients are hard to get. At times candidates are hard to get. At times fees are low. At times fees are high. There's always something in recruitment. And yet there's more recruitment agencies now than ever before. And every recruitment agency seems to be hiring. So something's going right. And if you are one of those people that's kind of going, I know my last couple of roles have been really difficult to find the candidates for, have a look at those roles you're working on. Are they actually good roles? How viable are the roles? Are they actually fillable? Because if they're not, and it was your own business, would you work on them or would you go get another bit of business elsewhere? Because if it's go get another bit of business elsewhere that you think you can fill, and then you look at what the fee would come through from that, do it. Just do it, because you'll find you're so much more empowered by doing so.
It's a whole different mentality, isn't it? When it's your own money, you don't take bad business, you only take good business, because you know when those fees come in, then it's your money. And I think a point to make there as well is one of my kind of key things that I say with anything that I do is I've made a placement, but I'm not counting it until the money's in the bank. But you didn't have that problem with your first fee, did you? Because one of the things about District 4 is that they pay you straight away in your first invoice, don't they? To help you get started, which I could have certainly done with back when I started my business.
Yeah, the fees are split into two. which throws some people a little bit at the beginning. But yeah, your first fee, they will pay you out in 14 days. So you will get your fee through. So suddenly you're, it's an incredible moment you can't really describe. But then every fee moving forward is split into two. So you will get half of your payment after 14 days, and the other half when the money comes into the bank. And so even if you're placing something and you know that they are on 30-day payment terms, or clients are paying late, or whatever it might be, you still get your money after 2 weeks. And this is what I mean by the credit control side, because although I obviously will help and nudge, and I've got the relationships, having a credit control team there, making sure that money's coming in, looking after the businesses, raising it with me when the money hasn't come through to give me a nudge, it's fantastic, and actually takes a huge weight off, because it's something else not to worry about. It's not another chart. It's not another thing you're suddenly looking at on a Friday night going, God, I haven't done that. I've got to look at that.
So what have you been your biggest challenges so far? Because I know it was a great time for you to set up your business. It was kind of mid-pandemic. It was the time when everyone's starting to think about what's actually important to them. Actually, I'm great at working from home, and I don't need to be micromanaged, and I don't need to be in the office, and I don't need KPIs and all that. And that's why so many people started up at the same time as when you did. But what have been your biggest challenges?
The isolation to begin with. I loved having the colleagues of District4, we regularly catch up over video calls kind of every week, every other week. There's lots of shares, there's lots of empowerment in terms of going, who's doing well, who's doing what, who needs support, can we collaborate, all that great stuff. But it's all through video, because that is the way of the world now. And actually, that freedom to work from home was absolutely key for me. However, seeing nobody, particularly when my girlfriend was at work for the week or whatever it'll be, she works in the NHS, works long days, it's hard. And so hence the co-working space answer came about. I think at times the self-motivation is very difficult on those days where things are you're having those weeks where you just want to go, I've had enough. I've absolutely had enough, but you've still got some stuff to do. Okay, brilliant. To begin with, at times it was, at the beginning I thought, this is just a nightmare. And actually, I found out at the end of the week that I got my stuff done. I was thinking, how has that happened? I remember being completely demotivated, but I pick it up and I go and do an hour, and then I just leave it. And you look after your own mental health and well-being so much better, because if you have those days where you wake up and you feel rubbish, you haven't got that nervous call to a boss to say, look, feeling awful today, can I not come in? You'll go back to bed, get your head down for a couple of hours, maybe wake up, do a bit of work, make sure that a few bits are sorted, and you'll come back to it. But yeah, I'd say the two key things for me were the isolation side, and obviously found an amazing option for that, and also the self-motivation. But again, that self-motivation side came in from having a business coach. I think to begin with, you run at it, you absolutely run, and it's very easy to burn out. It's very easy to just constantly go, oh, it's my company, I've got to keep doing, I've got to keep going. Having that business coach there to go, it's okay to actually just stop for a bit. If it's something urgent, then crack on, and finding that balance. But the key thing, I guess, when I set up on my own, one of my key measurements was I wanted that freedom. I wanted that time to where if you've done your stuff in a week and your clients have all clocked off on a Friday and no one's around, then I'm going to just stop working. Run those times, and we've all been there, sitting in an agency where you're just kind of killing the last couple of hours of the day. You're just doing, oh yeah, I'm writing job adverts for something that might come up in a couple of, you're on Facebook, you're on BBC Sport, you're checking your fantasy football team. Giving yourself adequate breaks. But if you want to have those days where you wake up and start and work all the way through, you can do. And you don't have somebody going, oh, look at what they're doing, or whatever, but you don't have those distractions going on. So that balance comes with time. I think it's probably still getting there for me. I'm absolutely got a much better balance now. But my work-life balance is brilliant. So much better. I'm not knackered all the time. I'm not exhausted. I'm not there sat at the end of the week going, I've had a great week, but I haven't done my extra 20 calls where I'm expecting the candidates, so therefore I'm going to get a rollick in next week for my appraisal. None of that. Because what I'm doing works. What I'm doing works for my clients and my candidates and for me, and it's just free. It's just complete freedom. But it doesn't come with its difficulties. It doesn't come with its challenges. But the reason I partnered with District4 is because I knew those were going to be troubleshooted, looked after and cared about. And I've had moments where I've come through, there was a business who I've worked with that were looking at getting a trustee. It meant that actually I then couldn't work for them for a considerable period of time. Now I obviously haven't got the job yet, we'll see if I get it. But I've applied and I've gone for it. And actually speaking with James and my business coach separately, the empowerment to go, well, if you want to go for it, weigh it up. Is it good for you and your business? Let's have a proper adult conversation rather than going, no, we need the business coming in. What do you need to do that for? Or going up to the CIH conference. Yeah, that's brilliant, but can you let us know the return on investment and how quickly you're going to get money through from taking those 2 days? This job is about relationships. This is how I'm building relationships and building my credibility. Allow me to do it. And if I fail, I fail. That's okay. Because I've got enough clients in the background. And I've spoken to a number of people and said, you are aware if you set up on your own and you have 10 clients that each needed you to do 3 to 4 hires a year, and you're talking, you've got 35 hires through the course of that year, and each of those pay you $5,000, there's 150k.
And suddenly you're taking home a hell of a lot more of it than you would be if you were doing that in an agency.
And you've got the support of that, and you've also got your own freedom. I don't have to request annual leave. Sometimes it's hard to take because you can't fully step away, and it is hard. But you manage your own lifestyle, and you do need a bit of self-discipline. And people who know me will know that isn't necessarily one of my strongest strengths. And yet I've been able to do it. I found a great balance. I've had more time with friends, family, and everyone else, but also been better at my job because of it. I've got rid of 10 hours of pointless meetings a week, 10, 12 hours. So those 40-hour weeks, well, that goes down to 30. Okay, if you do 30 hours of just recruitment a week, can you be successful? Yeah, cool, go on then. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I found the same because for me, I wanted to work my business around my daughter. And suddenly you go from 50 hours a week where really on a Friday, as you said, or for the last couple of hours when you shouldn't really be there, you're all waiting for someone else to clock off first, to working 4 days a week and then school hours. And actually you soon realize what's important and you soon get everything done in the hours that you have. And then you obviously get the lifestyle benefits of it as well. So from what you've said, I think I probably already know the answer to this, but would you ever go back into an employed role now that you've been self-employed?
It'd be incredibly hard. I mean, it would mean like, not unless I suddenly forgot how to recruit and all my clients walked away and the recruitment world collapsed. Recruitment is what I know, but if in the recruitment piece, I wouldn't. There's some amazing businesses out there. There's also some, I'd probably say there's a majority that probably aren't. And for me, the freedom that I've got with it, the financial benefits that I've had with it, the ability to look after my clients in a way that works for me and works for them. No, I wouldn't. This has been the right decision for me, and I'm delighted to have made it. And it's good to be a bit of a success story within it. But I don't know anybody in District4 who hasn't had the same kind of experiences. And actually, as long as you're willing to put in your side, District4 will make sure you're looked after. And I think when I've looked back and kind of gone, should I have just started self-employed from the beginning? Bear in mind the quick start I had, bear in mind the successes. Should I have just gone fully self-employed? No, because the benefits I've had with my coach, who's Claire Mohammed. If you're looking for a business coach, Lyndsey is amazing. Claire's amazing. I had incredible options, and I couldn't vouch for her enough. On top of that, the support I've had from James and the other members of District4, as well as having the stuff I didn't know I needed to look at, just looked after. I'm happier than I've ever been in work.
Amazing. So we're almost coming to the end of our time, so we've got time for a couple of questions.
Okay.
The questions and comments aren't coming through live on the broadcast, unfortunately. So if you have asked a question and we can't see it, we will come back and answer it in the comments. But we did have a couple of questions sent through before the live for people that actually couldn't make it live, or people that wanted to remain anonymous because they don't want their bosses to know they're thinking about starting their own business, which makes sense.
Cool.
The one of them was, how much money do you need to start your business? And I would say, as we've already said, it depends on which model you decide to go for. You need to look at enough money to cover your business costs and your personal costs until you start making enough money in your business that you can be paying yourself a salary to cover those personal costs as well. So I would say you need enough money to cover your business and personal costs for at least 3 months. Ideally 6. Now, I actually started, this is 11 years ago, so obviously things are a little bit different now. I actually started with £5,000 because that's all the money I had. So it wasn't a huge amount of money at the time because suddenly I wasn't getting paid anything. I was having to pay for everything myself. As I said, I wasted a huge amount of money and made a huge amount of mistakes in the beginning just because I didn't know any better. However, starting with less money was not a bad thing for me. I'm a big believer in Tony Robbins' saying, which is sometimes you need to burn the boats, because if you have too much money behind you, actually, you've got the opportunity to sit back and fail. If you only have so much money, it gives you the impetus to really make it work because you have no other, there's no other option. So for me, it's enough money to give you that little bit of a cushion, but not too much money to make you too comfortable, is kind of the right amount for me. Matt, someone has asked why you chose to start your business via District4, which I think you've probably answered most of it. I think you've mentioned the fact that they help you with your business plan, the fact that they pay for your launch costs. You've got LinkedIn Recruiter for free, which is nice. And also you've got the support of your coaches, advisors, and the other.
Yeah, LinkedIn Recruiter and other things that, again, you don't realise the cost, as you've mentioned, the cost of these things. But there's also the advice and guidance of colleagues. So when you're getting an accountant, when you're getting, your business taxes and things set up, stuff you didn't know you needed, it's making sure you're staying outside IR35 and what that looks like and how you're managing those things. It's getting a laptop, it's getting a CRM, it's all of those things.
It's kind of like a in a box, isn't it?
Of course it is. It's brilliant. And like I say, I mean, if you look at the cost of LinkedIn Recruiter plus a coach, even if you just look at that for 6 months, it blows out the water in terms of what you're actually going to be spending. It helps you spend your money in the right way. And a bit like you, actually, I started with 5,000. I very much kind of looked at, right, if I lived budget for 3 months on my, really, really budget down for 3 months just to cover my rent and things like that. Unfortunately, rent in Birmingham is not cheap. And actually didn't need anything like that. I was okay because I started so quickly. But my budget allowed me to kind of go, actually, this is if I bill nothing for 3 months, which you won't, because you're an experienced recruiter and you know what you're doing. But if you build nothing for 3 months, we look at rookies. We expect rookies to bill in the first 3 months. Then you're going to be okay. So was more than enough. I could have done fine with less.
Fantastic. And last question, do you have a list of all the things a startup needs to get off the ground? Actually, District4 has one, so we can share that. I'll share a link to that in comments. And if anyone obviously wants to speak about it in more detail, then just let us know. Obviously, if you're interested in finding out more about District4, or you can send me a direct message because I actually work with District4 as an advisor, or if you're thinking about doing it in another way and you want to have a chat, obviously just let us know as well. So thank you so much for joining us. I really, really enjoyed that chat. It's a topic we haven't covered before, but I think it's a conversation to be had right now because there is so much opportunity for recruiters to be starting their own business. As we said, there's so many job opportunities. So by all means, make hay while the sun shines. But also because of the pandemic, so many people have realised that they have the ability to do it by themselves, for themselves, and get the benefits of that as well. So it's a great time to start a recruitment business, whatever form you decide to do it in. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be back with the next episode of the Grow Your Recruitment Business LinkedIn Live show in 2 weeks' time. And thank you so much to Matt for being such a fantastic guest, and good luck for the next 6 months of your business and beyond.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for having me on, Lyndsey.